here, moment to moment, where, okay, there's some more things to learn. Okay, there's some more things to learn. Now, with like, for instance, the I am that I am versus the I am this I am, I've used the I am that I am, meaning I am that, all that is, all that out there. All that out there, that separates me from it. I never even realized that. So even with the level of work that I've been doing with it, I didn't see the little subtle twists that are in there. It is, I am this. You're right there in it. You are engaged. You are not separated from it. So there's all sorts of subtleties. And it was really interesting. When we went on break, Michael and I were talking about something, and he said something in relation to something else, and all of a sudden my brain just went right to that little bit of a statement. There was a lesson under there that has to do with another way of looking at something that we're so used to doing that we don't realize we're doing something that's the opposite of empowerment. The little sentence that was like in a different context that had nothing to do with this particular issue was said, all right, what if somebody came up to you in a parking lot and for no reason at all just hauled off and smacked you in the face? What do you do with this? You have to learn to, to handle your reactions to this person that did this action. My brain went, whoa, wait a minute. For no reason at all? Okay, that's a cue right there. There's always a reason. And then it went to, wait a minute. I don't see anything at all ever in my experience that is not in my template. I just smacked myself in the face. There's a big difference here, and this is the heart of the victim-victimizer pattern and how we stay in polarity, playing either one or the other. There is a huge lesson under it, and I will try to verbalize it because it's a lesson it's just coming down as I go along here. Where if you look at, somebody comes up and does something nasty to you, or says something nasty to you, the first thing you want to do is like, well, that wasn't nice. That person did something that wasn't nice. I'm an innocent person. I didn't do anything to you. Why would you do that to me? First of all, you're saying that person is separate from you. You're saying to yourself that your hologram didn't do this. You're saying that your template didn't do this, but it did. You're not recognizing the fact that the event you just experienced, you manufactured, even if they did the action. And it also implies that they are a symbol. They're a symbol person in that event. They are you taking on a different face that came over and did something back to this part of itself. And I was like, oh my God, when you say that person did this to me, so therefore it's that person's fault, I can fix me, but I can't fix them. You can experience a different version of other people. You will experience the version of people that you have embedded in your template. Every person you meet is actually a person that is an energy signature, a consciousness that's also embedded in your template, or you would not see that person or ever meet that person. They would be non-existing to you if they weren't in your template to project out. So the first part of healing is being able to say, okay, I just smacked myself in the face. Why might I have done that? What is my template, the part of me that's in my template that just did this, I just created this. Why did I? What is in there for me to discover that I can heal? The real healing comes when the other person is able to do the same thing in their world. Now you can change your hologram. First you own it. And you realize, no matter how bad it was and how much of a victim you seem to think you were, and you may have played the victim in that drama. It feels like being victim. Action was done on you rather than the other way around. However, it was still your template that manufactured it. You still created it. You created yourself as experiencing the victim polarity of the victim-victimizer drama, polarity drama. So it's still yours. First of all, you can disengage the other person. They have their life to deal with. They have to deal with the fact that they just played the other side of the polarity, so they have the same pattern. You have these problems because they have a pattern and you have a pattern that match. So you become action people for each other, symbol people. Once you bring it home and say, okay, I'll own this. I realize I'm the manifestor. Nothing in my hologram. There's not a darn thing in my hologram, including those nasty little ants out there that just bit the heck out of my toes during break, and it hurt. They victimized my toes. I created this. My template created this. You can say, well, okay, I am my template. That's a part of my consciousness that is obviously not this part of my consciousness, because I didn't put it on this level that I wanted to create that. But some level of my consciousness in my template that's below my awareness right now or above it did create this event. First of all, you have owned it, which means you're not, if you don't own it like that and say, I did this, I am playing victim and victimizer right now. I'm playing a drama with myself. Why'd I do that? Okay, that leads you to a step toward empowerment. If you do, the usual thing is, first of all, feel bad. Hey, that wasn't nice. One of the first things that will come up with fight or flight is, I'm going to smack you back. You know, whack, and you go back, and so it's going to smack itself in the face from now until eternity. You're still in polarity. You're engaged in active polarity, right? You can run away, you can turn around and run because the person still wants to smack you in the face more, or you can just hold your ground and say, excuse me, hologram. I'm going to be in my hologram and take a little detour with my consciousness and go and say, why am I manifesting this now? There's a reason why I'm manifesting this now, but I am peace now. I am this. I am peace now. You're going to change the whole dynamic. You're going to change what they do next. Because if you just go, you just did this to me, and I'm either going to run away from you or I'm going to smack you back, you're making it as if they are doing something to you. They are separate from you. You can't control them at all. So you have to do something in reaction. You're choosing reaction instead of action. This is where people get all defensive toward each other, where they turn away from each other either in fight or flight. If instead you can hold your ground with yourself, because it's really yourself that's causing the problem, and they have the same issue inside of them. That's what drew you together in a state of disharmonic resonance. If you go in and you say to yourself, I created this, I don't know why at the moment. There's a part of me I have to have a conversation with, obviously. Now that conversation may end up with them, because they are still the symbol person that you projected out to embody that disharmonic for you. So sometimes those things will, once you work it out in yourself, they'll come to your door. You will draw them back in a state of harmony, where once you've harmonized it here, you will get in your hologram its harmonized version here. But until you do, until you say, this is mine, I created this, I can change the whole situation, the hologram picture of how these two elements are interacting, because they're interacting this way inside of me. All right? Now, if I choose defense and reaction to it, I'm just going to feed it energy and perpetuate the disharmonic. I might not understand how I created it yet. And it's not a, well, I created this part, maybe 75%, but they created 25% because they didn't want to do this. You know, because you know that, all right, maybe you're absolutely right in this situation, and they're absolutely wrong in that situation, but you're still in polarity. If you have to be right, you're insisting someone else has to be wrong, and you're still in polarity. When you get to the place where you realize thoughts and ideas are thoughts and ideas, and you don't have to assign a right or wrong value to them. You can choose which ones you want, and let everybody else have the exact same freedom to do the same thing. You don't have to make them wrong to do it. You don't have to agree with them either, as far as you don't have to embody that side. But if you can go into yourself in a conflict situation like that, and this lesson was very important because it has everything to do with, before we get into seeing what the Nibiru and Data crystal grid is doing, and seeing how victimized our race has been here, if we can understand on the simple little thing, in a personal drama, where somebody comes up and smacks you and you end up as the victim, and you think somebody else outside of you did that to you, you're missing the whole point, and you're totally just disempowered yourself. That is your point of saying, I'm completely out of control. My hologram's controlling me, and I'm not controlling it. I am being run over by my hologram. If at that moment you can stop the natural reaction pattern, where you want to get totally engaged and let your hologram swallow you in the reaction pattern, you can say, okay, I could do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to react at all for a moment. I'm going to breathe. I am peace now. I just manifested this, and I am going to figure out why later, but right now I'm going to heal it. I am peace now. I am peace now. And it's like you have to stop time inside your head while you're holding your ground in your drama and not reacting, which is really weird, because if somebody's getting ready to throw the next punch, you have to really expand that moment real fast. Get yourself back here. You can almost imagine there's a little door in your head, right, your pineal gland, and when you find yourself in a combat type situation, you go, okay, right there, it's time to run for the door. Okay, hold the action, and literally just hold the action. I mean, if somebody's coming at you, you can actually get to the point where somebody's going to swing a punch. By the time that would get to you, you could have it shifted, but you will not shift it from here. This is where the action's taking place. It's being manufactured from the dimension above, the station of consciousness that's creating the hologram. You're trying to fix it from the past. You're not going to fix it from the past. You need to go inside and say, okay, where's that exit door? I'm going to stand back from my hologram, and a little part of you, the other part's going, hurry up, I need to know what to do with myself. You know? The other part of you is going, I am peace now. I am peace now. I am peace now. I am this. I am. It is all me. That is me there. This is me here. I am peace. And this thing shifts in your field. And that shift creates the shift in the person with you. They react differently. You react differently. You can literally stop big messes from happening this way. But it's an art. It's a skill that you develop with practice. It's not something you're going to get immediately because you're so used to reaction. You know, if somebody smacks you and you're going, you know, the adrenaline starts to run, you get all sorts of chemical changes in the body. All of a sudden your body is going on its own direction, your emotions are going on its own direction, your mental body's sitting here going, oh my God, what is it I'm supposed to do? I'm supposed to own it. How do I own it? I am peace. Okay, I am peace. You start saying I am peace, they're going to think you're nuts, and that's okay. That might be the shift that'll do it. You externalize it. I am peace now. What? I'm going to smack you in the face. I am peace now. You know? But you have to know what you mean when you say that. You have to know what you are saying. I am peace, which means I'm going back to the still point right now. Excuse me, be right back in the drama until I figure out what I'm going to do. All right? I am peace. You say it. You can say it out loud if you want. Just like if you're having you can bark and that will do something different. You know, like instead of engaging it with what would be its natural reaction, the other polarity of somebody smacks, the other polarity is either to turn around and run and reverse your polarity, or to throw the polarity back and smack them back. You need to catch that reaction pattern. That's that fight or flight stuff. That is a distortion, where actually the still point in the middle is, I am peace now, running for the door in the pineal gland, and picture yourself on the other side of that door. The hologram's out here for a second. And if you meditate with this technique, getting yourself through the door, while the action's still going on here, but all of a sudden you get your focus back behind it. You are putting your focus in the dimension above, where this is being manufactured. From there, you will be able to say, I am peace now. I am this. I am. And that signature will come down on the next several flashline sequences into the condition that's manifesting before you. It'll take a little bit of time to get good at it. Because we're so used to, the body is used to responding to the other pattern. You need to retrain the emotional body and the physical body reactions, but it starts with what you do with the mind. The reason it's important to understand that, and the funny thing is, the solution to the whole thing is both victim and victimizer. If they did the same thing in that parking lot, person came up to you, smacked you across the face, and what you need to do is say to yourself, I just smacked myself across the face. What the other person needs to do in their hologram too is say, I just smacked myself across the face. You hit the point of union between the two polarities, because they just did exactly the same thing. If you realize that you are the same being, if you realize your godness in that moment, you will realize that when someone inflicts a victimization on you, they are manifesting for you. They are doing a job for you. They are saying, I will be the face that your symbol will wear. The symbol that is the symbol of this energy pattern that's in polarity, that's in you. You play this side and I'll play this side, but it's all me. Okay? This is, I am this. It's a real subtle twist of mind that takes you either into power or out of power. If you think something inflicted it on you, you are completely out of power to change it. But if you realize, oh my goodness, I just manifested this, and I'm going to manifest another punch right after that one if I don't figure out how to not do that right now. Okay? It doesn't mean you stand there and let somebody hit you. Once you get better at realizing the perspective that's behind the perspective, this is one perspective that is the past of thought patterns that you held that already came into their flashline expression. You need to go above it, which means back into the blank space inside your head. Go back through the pineal and in there. Train yourself to do it. Bless you. Train yourself to do it before you're in combat, because Okay. The other cheek. Yeah, that might be. That's fun. I'll play with that one. I think I'll see if somebody will play with that one. Okay, turning the other cheek. It's a little different because usually what turning the other cheek means, if you don't do something else, is you can turn the other cheek and they're going to smack the other one. And if you turn your back, you may get hit over the back of the head. There's more than just turning the other cheek. There's a shift in the angle. But it's coming back into the self, acknowledging that I am the manifester now. I am God now. I am the God that is manifesting this. And you are God. There's a real charge behind that. A lot of people have a hard time with saying, I am God. No lightning balls, nothing fell on my head, I didn't get zapped with a heart attack. Well, I guess God is not mad. We're trained to think of God as some big thing up in the sky that we're little tiny children of, maybe, that we have to, we never claim that was us, our authority. We have been programmed to be afraid to say I am God as if we're doing blasphemy in doing so. That is a twist that was put in here. If you are not God, you are not the manifester of your hologram. And if you're not the manifester of your hologram, somebody else is inflicting it on you. You have a choice. Which way do you think reality works? We've explained enough about how thought is projected outward. We've explained how it becomes particle bases. There's enough evidence at this point to put a good argument for the mental body to say, I am God, aren't I? I am the manifester here. It doesn't mean that you're in control of every other person. What you are in control of is the version of the people you will meet. You can't control another person this way. It's not your job and it's not your right. But people are symbol people too. That level of them you do have a right to interact with. There's many versions of all of us out there, and we only see one at one time. Every person has a loving and higher version. If they are in their lower pole right now and that's what you're meeting, it's because you had that pattern in you and it manifested. But it implies that they have a higher pole. If you have a relationship where you're having disharmony with a person or a collective of people, it implies that there's a place where that has been harmonized. And the idea is to find the place where you are peace now, where you can make the shift to the other perception, to where you can begin to bring into your reality. That might be, I see what you're saying with the turn the other cheek thing. If you're looking this way, 45-degree shift, an angular rotation, a particle spin, you turn the other cheek. It could be translated that way. But there's such an empowering issue under here, because it's the heart of the victim-victimizer stance. All of the way human reactions to each other have been programmed is in offense or defense. Either, if you don't defend yourself, you get walked on. And unfortunately, it tends to be what happens. It really looks like that here. If you're just nice to everybody and you take responsibility for everybody's stuff, they'll keep dumping it on you, and you will find yourself totally stepped on, walked on, and feel like a dish rag. Because you're trying to fix it from here by letting them throw their stuff on you. That doesn't mean you let your symbols throw their stuff on you. You have to be able to perceive two things at once. The individuality and separateness and total validity of each person as an individual. But also, at the same time, the reality that they are just a symbol person that my being just projected out. But they're supposed to do the same thing to you too. That's where you recognize, I am God, you are God, we are God, we just created this. Let's create something better, that kind of thing. So there's a space inside yourself that you can go. It's when you go one dimension up from the hologram that you're seeing. That one dimension up appears to be what's inside of your head. And as what's inside your head, where those thoughts become, where you think. If you think about where do you think from the focus that we're in, and the body is here, we actually think from all sorts of levels, but, our toes think. But the thoughts that we're dealing with right now are the ones that are throwing it directly and fully into manifestation, into light and sound patterns that we can see. If we can go into the space where we just did that, where we just made that happen and forgot we made it happen, you can go into the dark space inside of your head. That is the space where you begin to make the transfer into the space that's out of the hologram and into its places where it was manufactured. There are two places from where you are. If you're in your hologram here, there are two places that the hologram is being manufactured from. One is the higher frequency band that would appear as light, that would be up here, that would be the future, a portion of yourself in the future. is bringing that into manifestation. There is also the other part down here. That would be the lower frequency from where you're from. That would be what would be considered in vibration, your past. And you are at the center here inside of your head. If you go up into the light and then down into the dark and then bring them together, what you've done there is bring at least together the 2 points where the hologram is being manufactured from. And if you bring them together and see them as a Vesica Pisces, one dark and one light, you will see this gray zone appear as you bring the 2 circles together and they make a Vesica, and then you bring them more together and you see it getting kind of gray instead of dark, and you can look at a black and white circle. One's black, one's white. As you bring the circles together when you're sitting there in your head, you're making a zone. The first will look gray, then it will start to, as you merge those circles together more, it will start to take on a pale silver quality. You'll start to hit the D12 subharmonic where they unite. Okay? There's a trick you can use to when you're trying to heal the polarities in any drama. Remember that there are 2 circles attached to every drama, and to make the hologram, there are 2 circles, one here, and your dot of consciousness is right in between those 2. Alright? You go into your inner space in here, where it kind of looks like dark at first, and then you visualize the white circle on top and the dark one on the bottom. What you're doing is visualizing that you have the higher set of frequency bands and the lower set of frequency bands that are creating this hologram. You bring them together in your mind's eye and watch the Vesica form, and watch the area where the Vesica forms first turn gray as black and white merge. And then as you progressively merge them together, when they start to cross past the half-over point, that little point in the circle, they start to literally come together past that point. It starts to go silver. You are literally going into the 12th dimensional subharmonic of the 3 different frequency bands that it takes to manufacture the hologram. Bring it into a circle that then, when you see the circle, the Vesica turns into a circle with a point at the center, and imagine yourself at the center of that point saying, I am peace now. I am peace now. That's where you disengage from the hologram for a minute completely. I am peace now in that space. And then watch it go, and it turns to a silver. It turns all silver and then bursts. You've just completely demanifested the conflict pattern that was taking place, and your moment point will change and begin to reflect the new one. It will begin. You have not left the circle separate, which means stuffing part of the past pattern back down, part of the future pattern back up, where you're going to manifest it again at your next moment point and the next. You brought them together and transmuted them with the D12 frequency. You've turned the myons and dions that they're composed of, put them together, and turned them into trions, where they will receive a new pattern, their highest expression, their D12 Christos template, that D12 subharmonic, and that particular drama and the thoughts that created it will get shifted in particle spin. They'll completely leave your field here and go into the part of your field of your consciousness that's stationed in that third timeline, the inner timeline, that's built on the unified field where polarities exist within the unity of the whole. This is the process by which we can start to get control of what our hologram is doing to us and realize it isn't doing it to us. We're allowing it to interact with us in a certain way to teach ourselves this. Okay.
You said before the break that you're walking, right? How is it that anyone in this room would know that you're not an actor?
Well, they could, if they're really good at reading my fields and they went up to about D14, they could find my coding and access it that way. They don't know. That's the thing. How do I know you're not?
I believe that...
You know what I mean? This is what it comes down to. And the other question is, so what if you were? What would that mean? Okay? How would that change what I would do? That's where the thought pattern would lead if you were going to try to figure out what to do with it. Now, I know I'm not an Anunnaki. I know where I incarnated from. But what is very interesting about this, and this goes into what I wanted to explain of how this little thing about a personal victimizing issue, like if you're the person who went and smacked somebody in the parking lot, you might not even exactly know why you did that. Kind of lost control and just felt like it did it. That's telling you something. You just manifested something. You smacked a part of yourself. You just victimized a part of yourself. Why did you do that? But there's a part beyond the 1-2 person thing. When we come into races, all right now.
Can I answer the question?
Can you answer? You ask it and answer it too.
Well, you said, how do I know you're not an actor? You responded. my answer is that if you were truly a divine being of sources, I mean, Melchizedek is a divine law of one. There's no outside the one.
Right.
So we all are Anunnaki.
Yes, but there's more detail than that.
Well, but the thing is that you have to accept the precept that I'm everything. I'm the fallen angel and I'm the risen angel. Or the
yes, to a degree. But looking at it in that level of simplicity, you're missing some vital facts that will change. You're leaving yourself open for something there that you don't realize by that belief. Okay? Anunnaki consciousness, draconian consciousness, and human consciousness we're all one originally. So were ants and trees and planets and supernovas. Okay? But I'm supernova. That doesn't mean right now my body is shaped like a big star right here in this time frame. Okay? Right now, we have elements of each other in us. We are all one when you take us all back up to source. But we are also individualized once we come into polarity. The Anunnaki races evolved in a completely different way than the human races did. Their souls, the people who inhabit bodies who have Anunnaki coding, have different intentions because their creators, the ones who projected themselves into those forms, had a different intention. They were created from the point 250 billion years ago when the fallen Anu Elohim chose to make a stand where they wanted to take over from D11, their own time matrix. They blew up Stargate 12, the universal Stargate 12, in this. And you can do this. You can blow up holes in the mind of God. You can actually do it. And it makes a real pain in the neck to repair them. They have to be repaired. Or the potentiality of God imploding on itself is actually there, but it'll never happen. Because Source will not allow that to happen. That's where the polarity has to be brought into balance if it gets bad enough for something like that to happen. But the Anunnaki races were not created as a Christos race. A Christos race has a D12 divine blueprint that's connected directly to the primal light fields in D13 through 15, and that's connected to the primal sound fields, and that's connected to Source. Now, they came out of Source originally as a stream of consciousness with all of us, but then when we all came out, we all took on diversified in different forms. The closest relationship that humans have to Anunnaki races are the fact that humans were created through the genetic chain of the Elohai Elohim. The Elohai Elohim had one particular family that co-created another type of race, another version of the Elohim, with the Brahmarama, which were the violet ray people. They became two different types of beings. They became the aquatic ape hominid forms. This is like in density 3 and the first harmonics of density 4. All right, these are like etheric and pre-matter races. It was one of those races that chose, because it ended up with code convolution, which is a distortion in its natural scalar pattern that created distortion in consciousness, where it took a path of evolution that was never intended. Now, because Source loves all, it will absorb that.
This means that Source is out of control. And I believe that Source is fully in control, and that if we talk about 5 harmonic universes, okay, that is in the time matrix, and everybody says time matrix is illusion, virtual reality.
It looks pretty real when you're here, because if the time matrix didn't have its reality when your consciousness was holding that pattern, you'd be able to immediately right now show us and demonstrate for us by popping out of here and then coming back and saying, see, it's all that easy. You're not able to do that yet, and neither am I. Because it is simple, but is also, there are complexities of the dynamics of physics that set in motion the ability for consciousness as one to express itself in many pieces. All right. We are one. We are one with the Anunnaki and everything else when we are expressing fully as Source. But Source exists in 2 states simultaneously. It exists as Source, and it exists as Source expressing an individuation, which means Source changing portions of itself so it can turn and look at itself and interact with itself. The intention, there are certain intentions that were original intentions for this time matrix. Time matrices are born in Source because Source has intentions as far as what Source would like to experience in that particular time matrix. Yes, there's some aspects. No. That's not what I'm saying.
It's predetermined. How do you associate free will?
You have free will within a parameter, within a predetermined structure and system within Source. That is what I'm saying. You have a range of free will, but at a certain point, there is Source will. And you should not have a difference between your will and Source will, because you are Source. Free will comes.
Could I have a difference?
Free will comes from having a parameter of action where you have a choice to manifest as your original intention as source, or to take the opposite stance if you so choose. Source has done that in becoming the consciousness of races. There are time matrices that were done specifically to explore what happens when Source decides to come into fragmentation to explore itself and pretends it doesn't know itself at all. They're not real pleasant places to be. They're the places that our rumors of hell come from. But
it's a place where Source pretends it doesn't know what it is. We come into it completely.
All right now, in the hologram, it appears that that's exactly what it is. But the problem with this is, and this is where original intention comes in, the original intention set for this time matrix, through which it manifested, through the agreements of the portions of Source who said, we will come in as the ascended masters. We will come in here. Thank you. I got bit on the toe before. Thank you, love. We will come in as ascended masters with intentions A through Z, okay? The intentions were set for the formation of the purposes of this particular time matrix. Those intentions were expressed in an agreement called the Emerald Covenant. Those intentions were the divine intentions as set by Source when it chose to fragment itself down into the Jhanas fields of Ascended Masters to become the sound fields and the light fields of the Brenna Rishi levels. Source had a reason for what it wanted to experience in this time matrix. And the creation of the Anunnaki races and the fallen Anu Elohim was not an element that was originally part of the plan. Now that plan could be explored elsewhere, and because Source is all, and because Source you can't get away from itself, it can't kick people out of itself, it will attempt to harmonize every manifestation of potentiality that pops up that it didn't originally think was going to happen in the original plan. This is what occurred. Source came in, it fragmented its identity first into the Jhanas, Ascended Masters, then portions of them fragmented their identity down into the Brenna Rishi in the primal light fields, then portions of them fragmented other portions of themselves down to become the Christos Founders races. The Christos Founders races had agreements that were the reflection of the agreements of who they were all the way up the chain, of why this matrix had been created, for what purposes of study and exploration, and what purposes of experience. There were things that, all right, those races created more. They put their consciousness into some smaller bodies, different types of bodies. They began to play with what it means. All right, I'm trying to, you're not hearing me and you're not letting me finish.
What I'm saying, it looks as though God lost control.
Shauna, I'm going to make a very wrong response.
Okay.
It's coming in real strong.
Really?
What God told me about this question is that there's parts of God that didn't know itself. Parts of God that were in oneness, that literally did not know itself as itself. And the only way it could know itself was to create form, to create the hologram. And in the hologram, it discovered there were even aspects of itself that wanted to deny itself as existing. And to me, when I understand it in that way, that's where the Anunnaki has birthed from, was parts of God that didn't know itself, not knowing itself, and wanted to experience its ignorance of itself. And that's what the reflection to me of Anunnaki are.
Okay. See, Anunnaki, we're not calling them evil or bad. Anunnaki are loved. But what the point that you're basically saying, well, if I follow the train of thought and I accept the belief that you're holding right now about, yes, okay, my perception is that if I chose to use those particular ideas that you've asked a question about, if I chose to say, well, Source created it that way, the Anunnaki are there too, they're allowed to be what they are even though they're playing the victims in all of this, and I just really need to do nothing because it's all perfect, what would be the outcome? There would be a lesson on the other end of it, where that part of Source that chose to explain that to itself would remind itself of its original intention and what it created by probably experiencing its opposite because it chose not to take any action to bring the original intention back into its wholeness. The Anunnaki races are not bad, and we were not intended, humans were not intended to have a DNA template that was built like the Anunnaki template. Do you know the difference between humans and beings that are out of Christos matrices and beings that are considered anti-Christos genetic races? It doesn't mean they're evil, that you destroy them or get rid of them. What it means is, it goes right back down to physics. In the Christos races, consciousness picks up Partakai units. It manifests itself as Partakai units coming down using the natural ratios that allow the dimensional structure to exist so the framework can exist. They have fire letter sequences that build their templates, very specific organizations that become the DNA template. All right? There are fire letter sequences that run in the natural sequences of how dimensions are structured. If you have in your template the structures of the natural dimensional structure, from D12 on down, if you have dimension 12 in all its fire letter sequences, dimension 11 in all the way down to dimension 1, that is considered a Christos race template. Not just humans have it. There are other races in the galaxies that have it too. Now what that allows for is because you have every one of the sub-frequency bands that correspond to the precise dimensional structure that holds the hologram together, you have the ability to spiral down all the way, and then to spiral your consciousness back up and get out. You have a free interrelationship and a free open communication line between you as source and you as source manifest. There is no difference. You are experiencing yourself in source expressing and source as not expressing in form all at the same time, because you have open conduits called fire letter sequences that are built on Partakai units that will allow that open conduit. Now, a template, a DNA template, a consciousness template of a being that is considered an anti-Christos being. And that doesn't mean it's evil. It doesn't mean you hate it. It doesn't mean it's any less valuable or less blessed than you are. It just means it has some evolutionary problems. If it has a template that has the fire letter sequences, first of all, if they don't have 12 strands, the templates for 12 strands, they can come down in. Everything started with 12-strand pattern. Because it started with, actually, everything started with an indigo pattern. Everything came into manifestation holding all the coding. But if choices were made and interactions were done in the middle dimensional fields that caused reactions that weren't a part of the original template, that actually neutralized and blocked out portions of the natural structure of dimension 1 through 12, it leaves holes in the template, portions of the frequency that can't process. And that means portions of the consciousness are stuck in time. A being that has a template that has holes in it like that has some evolutionary difficulties. Then there are the beings that have not only holes in it, but they have all of the fire letter sequences running in reverse. All right, where they actually have the codings of each sub-frequency band. If it's supposed to be A, B, C, D, E, they have it running from E to A. This changes the form and the mathematical relationship between Partakai units, and it keeps them dimensionalized where they cannot take one dimension of consciousness and blend it with another to progressively accrete. Beings that have this kind of template are stuck in time because their systems are not working properly. When their hologram manifests through that template, they get fragmented consciousness on each level. They can get a body form, but what they can't do is embody the primal life force currents that keep coming down. They are finite. Their bodies will die. They will not be able to transmute them. Sounds a lot like us these days, doesn't it? The reversed matrix DNA templates, which are consciousness templates, that is the difference between the original human design and the Anunnaki and Draconian human design. Anunnaki races they didn't start as Anunnaki races the Source created. They didn't come in as Anunnaki races. They came in as Elohai Elohim, that then combined with one of the other Christos races, and then found that there were some coding compatibilities because of certain things they did that were very much on the border of, do we want to explore this in this time matrix or not? The answer eventually became, oh dear, we shouldn't have, because it created a mess. It created portions of itself that decided they were going to rebel and try to take over and have their own creation matrix, free from Source. Oh, the Stargate, the way you're getting in here. Now, that's right. That shows you the twist in consciousness it takes. And that twist in consciousness comes from running your fire letters backwards, where you cannot bring in the understanding of the original intention. The life force currents, whatever degree they can get in, reverse, and...
How do you know what Source thinks? How do you perceive what Source thinks? I mean, I wouldn't even dare stand up and suggest anything that it's way beyond. Way beyond.
It's way beyond you, huh?
Way beyond the matrix.
It's right in you. You're in it. You are it. Do you hear what I'm saying? Well, how can I speak? I can speak for God, the part of God that I am. Okay?
Excuse me, can I ask a question, please? Would anyone that's in the room now that wants to continue this particular exchange by the question and answer say yes, and if you don't say yes, can we resume the direction that the channel was going in before? Right? There's all of you. There is the we of this, okay? I can feel you all wanting to move on in the direction that we're going.
Okay. We are still going in the direction, though.
Due time to individual questions is what I think has been given quite fairly, okay? If you want to resume the direction the channel was going in before, say yes now.
Yes.
Okay. Be there to help them heal, which was our job in the first place, why we were created, to come into this time matrix, restore the balances, and help the trapped consciousness to regain its Christos template so it could regain its open connection to Source, heal its distorted thought patterns, and get back out. But if we don't acknowledge the differences, the fact that our templates work different, therefore our consciousness, while we're in density, works different, they will make choices and do things that we would find horrendous. We would look at them because humans have a vibration with them that is loving and nurturing of all things. We would look at races that actually could go in and slaughter everything. Sounds like humans in the last 2,000 years. We would just be horrified at what they were capable of. All right? Anunnaki mind thinks different because its codes are different, so it can't get certain frequencies of consciousness in. If you cannot bring in D12 frequency into your consciousness at all, you progressively go into a space of separation from other races, separation from Source, separation from your own kind, separation from other kinds, and you become warring and defensive, and you see survival of the fittest. And you see competition instead of loving cooperation. This is the type of consciousness the Anunnaki and Draconian races have. They didn't always have it. The Anunnaki were born with it. The Anunnaki carry a horrible burden. They were created by a fallen matrix, the fallen Anu Elohim, which was a different race. All right, Anu Elohim decided, I'm going to make. It's important to understand this, so we understand what we're dealing with as we get back into the victimization thing, because this is about the biggest drama of it you're going to see that we're in the middle of on the planet. Okay.
I only asked the question to let you know that I'm part of your hologram.
Yes,
To see your reaction.
I know. That's why I engaged it. I know you're part of my hologram. I know I manifest you, and you manifest me, and we all manifest each other. Okay, but if we can understand that we have templates, our DNA templates, and if they're running well, we have our I am this, I am consciousness with us at all times. We know ourselves fully as Source and fully in individuation, all at the same time, and the experience is a joyful one. And there is no such thing as bad or evil in that experience because you understand what all of it is about. So you don't assign judgment or value to things, you just love them. You're in a state of vibrational harmonization. That is a state of wonder and beauty to walk the hologram in. Now, races that have a DNA template that has the 12 strands, that has the ability to anchor the D12 Christos field, which is the first point with the primal life force currents, where they start to come in not polarized, where you have the polarity, but you have a bigger current of unity coming in that holds the polarity, but it holds it in a field of love, harmonization. All right? If they can't bring in D12 frequency into the template, it progressively creates more and more polarity. They can't bring together those polarized units of myons and dions that they're made of, that their consciousness is made out of. Anunnaki are suffering from this, and so are the Draconian races. And in their suffering, they are capable of thought forms that are absolutely horrible. They harm themselves in doing this. They don't realize that I am you and you are me, and we are this. They feel separate. So when we talk about victimization, now this comes back to us, and what do we do with this? Okay, we are fortunate enough to have at least the blueprint left for the Christos template. What the Anunnaki have been doing progressively to us since the Atlantean period is, in the Atlantean period, they were on planet in physical form with us. In fact, way back, there's a history that goes back with this that I won't, actually it's a good time. I'll begin a little bit of this if I can find my book. Here we go. The history is very, very interesting. There's something called the creation of the Leviathan force. The Leviathan force were the races out of the tribe of Iluli Levi. The Levi tribe, the Levi tribe. Now, the Leviathan force is where our destinies and the Anunnaki destinies in this particular time cycle became highly intertwined. Okay? This is just basically the third seeding of our race here. We've had 2 seedings of the human race that took place long before. The first was 250 million years ago. Humans were seeded on parallel Earth, and 25 million years ago they were seeded on this Earth, and they got wiped out. Then there was a second seeding that happened, I believe, about 3 million, I don't think I have that on this list, 3,700,000 years ago, I think it was. And that one got wiped out. Then there was the third seeding, okay? We are part of the third seeding of the human races in this time field, in this reality field. The reason why 3 seedings were needed was because the conflict between the Draconians, the Anunnaki, and the human races who are here to try to restore the Christos template to Earth ended up in battles and wars that were devastating. And the humans haven't won one yet, but we're still here, which is an accomplishment. Right? In the distorted thinking and the sickness, it's a sickness of consciousness when one thinks they are separate from Source to the degree that they can go around killing and pillaging and stealing anything they feel like without any remorse. The very sad part about races that have that problem is they honestly feel no love, no bonding to other life forms. The Anunnaki have a vested interest in the stargates here. They're extremely intelligent races. They have a vested interest in the stargates as a conquest mechanism. Conquest for them is driven by the desire for survival because they feel like a finite race, because they know they have severed their connection to the 12th dimensional frequencies, which means the energy that they came in with, the amount of consciousness they came in with when they entered the time matrix with everybody else 950 billion years ago, that is finite, and it will expend itself if they can't open their body forms and their consciousness to receive more of the primal life force currents that are always circulating through here. They don't have the ability, while they keep choosing to have their templates run in reverse, so they do not have to experience the oneness. There are some really twisted ideas that were born out of fear that the Anunnaki hold. Fear that happened in the very early settlements of the Lyran-Syrian time period, which was like 250 billion years ago. But these races come in, and some of them have evolved. Now, the Anunnaki races were not created originally. They were created by the fallen Anu Elohim. 250 billion years ago, there was a big war in the Lyra star system. It was called the Lyran Elohim War. And this is where 2 groups of beings that had been the Elohi Elohim and the Seraphai Seraphim, Christos races. 2 of them started to go into digression where they were starting to think thought forms that didn't belong in this time matrix. It wasn't what was intended, and they needed help. Help was offered by the other founders' races, and they tried to help them, but they rebelled because the one group wanted the founders to go and destroy the other group, because the other group was not acting the right way, and if they didn't act the right way, then they were afraid they would destroy them. It was a whole decision built on fear. The founders said, no, we're not going to go destroy the Seraphai races. They need help in evolving back to their original clear thinking, and so do you. We will help both of you. Because that choice was made, the Anu Elohim matrix decided, well, forget you founders, we'll take it over and do it ourselves. So they launched a genocide campaign against the fallen Seraphim, and because the founders wouldn't intervene and get rid of the Seraphim for them. They also, in order to stop the founders from, and the Bren Arishi from the primal light fields, to stop them from intervening and stopping them from killing the races of the fallen Seraphim, they actually blew up, destroyed, got it running on a reverse matrix which makes it implode, the Universal Stargate 12, which is the gate in and out of density in this system. It took millions and millions of years to repair the entry point to this system, which meant all the consciousness that was in that time matrix, this time matrix, could only ascend furthest up to D11. And at D11, it was being run and controlled by this group called the Anu Elohim. The Anu Elohim were part of what was called the Giovanni matrix. The Giovanni matrix was once part of the families of consciousness that were part of the Elohi Elohim. This is where the word Jehovah comes from. The Giovanni matrix was a fallen angelic matrix. They created another race called the Anunnaki for a purpose. When things were getting really bad here again, now this was a war that started 250 billion years ago, and there was a lot of progress made. The founders, working with the Brenau races, the Rishi in Density 5, were able to repair Stargate 12. they were able to restore its balances, and it took millions of years to do it, because that's a big Stargate, and there's a lot of flashline sequences you have to put back in order to get it to work right again. But this time matrix was salvaged from becoming a phantom time matrix. There was another one that did become a phantom time matrix, which is one that part of this particle base is going to go into in the 3-day particle conversion period. Now, when the Stargate 12 was repaired, the founders' races realized the conflict dramas were so bad here that a race strain would have to be created to come in literally and stay in the densities as the security team that would take care of the Stargates, because they were blowing up smaller gates all over the place and taking them over and getting them running on a reverse matrix, which was meaning breaking their ability to run D12 frequency so they could be run on D11 reverse current and be controlled by the Giovanni matrix, the fallen Anu Elohim matrix. So there's been a quest, a holy grail quest, the grail, the Grual points for all of the Stargate systems, the control points for the Stargates. The grail quest has been going on for billions of years in this time matrix. Now, with the Anunnaki races, they came into the picture when the human races came into the picture. All right, before the human races, there was a race called the Azarites, where the 3 primary founders races, the Elohai Elohim, the Seraphai Seraphim, and the Brahmarama races that were, they represented each of the 3 primal light fields, got together and formed a pattern that had all of their patterns in it, because through that race pattern, anything stuck in this time matrix could get its frequency up enough to incarnate into that pattern and get all its coding back. Any consciousnness would be compatible with that particular pattern to incarnate into, because it had parts of the 3 primary founders' races that everything else was born out of. So they were called the Azarites. They were a blue-skinned race, and they, for eons, held a security position in this time matrix. They would go into systems that were, either almost destroyed or in threat of being destroyed, and they would bring the teachings of the Emerald Covenant, and they would bring the love, and they would offer bioregenesis opportunity for any of the fallen races. They would offer them the opportunity that if they'd stop fighting and enter the Emerald Covenant, they would have the assistance they needed and be given the knowledge they needed to restore their templates so they wouldn't be hijacked into this time matrix anymore. They were stuck. So the Emerald Covenant races, and there's many, many more of them than there are the others, have progressively worked with this system way before humans came in on the scene. Now, humans came in on the scene when there were certain periods where this time matrix looked like it was healing, and then the conflicts would flare up again, and there'd be setbacks, and there'd be other gates destroyed, and almost Gate 12 destroyed again, which didn't happen a second time yet, fortunately. At that point, the beings, the Ascended Masters who had come in as the Azarites, were tired and decided a new wave of consciousness would be brought in to the matrix in order to serve the security role. And the new wave of consciousness would also have other alterations to its template that would allow it more tolerance of the densities, because the Azarite template, they had a very difficult time with density 1 and intervening here, because their biologies were so sensitive. When they would downscale their vibration to come here, they wouldn't last very long in this time field, which meant if there were problems down here, they had a very short limit of time that they could come in and do something about it before they would get sick, and they'd have to leave, or they'd lose their ability to leave, and they'd end up dying bodies. And that wasn't an option for the Azarites. They weren't about to start leaving their DNA and their body material all over the place, because they know that causes problems as far as getting back out of the time matrix. So a new race was created that had more tolerance. It had some of the density 1 system frequency put into the template, so they would be able to come in and go through any of the densities. They'd have the ability to evolve and ascend up to any level, and also to walk around down here for as long as needed, whenever necessary. They were the breatharian humans. They were called the Oraphim race, the sons of light, because they were literally the projections of the light and sound field, the new wave of consciousness that came in. Now, as soon as this happened about 568 million years ago, and it happened in density 2, where the first Oraphim were seeded. And the Oraphim race, as soon as they were seeded, there was a reaction from the Jehovian matrix, the fallen angelic Jehovian matrix. They decided they were going to create a race and put themselves into it, but also could go into the densities and get rid of these other guys, because now the humans that had come in had the ability to go down and take care of the damage that was being done down here. They were going to try to take over the whole time matrix by getting control of the lower frequencies and working their way up and getting the whole thing running in reverse. When the humans were created, the Anunnaki were created as a reaction to that. They were created with one intention. Their creation intention from their creator gods was to destroy humans. That was their creation purpose. They live with an imprint that has a huge amount of arrogance attached to it. Their creators felt that they were superior to anything else that was in this time matrix. They should be lords of the time matrix, and if the other guys wouldn't let that happen, well, we just take it from them. This was the attitude the Anu Elohim have. It's because of their distortions of consciousness. They forget their oneness.
They don't understand the hologram model. They don't get the hologram.
Actually, they understand lots of it. They understand how they can use it to sever the connections, and this is why some of this is on security clearance, because if we don't get it fast and then get to use it right, if it gets down here, it gets in their hands, they start to, aha, that's the piece we couldn't access, because they can't pull anything more than D11 information, because they can't pull D12 or higher. This is a Kadic level information that's being brought down from the primal sound fields, the first individuation level, the original templates. So they love us. We can bring them in, and they go in like sharks at a feeding frenzy. They want to take the knowledge, the pieces they can't find. Once it's downloaded here, they can find it, and they can take it and twist it to a different intention. So that's what's been being done all along. They know lots of creation physics. That's why they'll teach you Merkaba like they're doing on Planet these days. But they'll teach you the wrong spins, knowing you couldn't tell the difference if you tried, because they took all the knowledge away from this place. And they rendered the DNA where you can't remember. So they use the creation physics that they understand in order to take a stance against Source. They don't want to experience the union because they do not remember what it feels like to have the D12 connection. Once you have D12 frequency running in you, there is a love that comes, a core sense of, we know we are connected, therefore I could not harm you, for I am only harming myself. You go into cooperation instead of competition. The Anunnaki don't feel that, and they don't understand it because they don't have the template. Just like I said, you can't see anything or experience anything that's not in your template. They do not remember, they do not have the feeling for what divine love means, what Christos love means, because of this. I'm sorry? What?
That means they cannot be saved?
No. I always looked at it this way, where there's life, there's hope. And there's always life, so there's always hope. There have been many, many billions of years of bioregenesis programs offered for them at this point. They have been co-evolving with us, and this time matrix has been turned into a war zone between, it's really bizarre, because the Anunnaki, the fallen Anunnaki races and the fallen Draconian races don't like each other either. So they fight with each other, and they try to get rid of humans. They have one thing in common. They both want to get rid of humans, but then they want to destroy each other as well. Now, it is not easy to heal a person who comes in on an Anunnaki imprint, because they are completely missing the 12 subharmonics in all of their strands. It's not just that they're missing strand 12. They are missing every 12th subharmonic all the way down, which means their strands can't plug in. They can get all the way up to D11 cognition on each dimension, but they can't figure out how this dimension applies to this one, or what the connections are between them to get an aha feeling of consciousness and understanding. So they work on these very compartmentalized type thought forms. There is a healing process that's involved, and this is what this gets into. One of the many attempts of the healing processes is called DNA bioregenesis. There was a hybridization program that was offered to certain groups of Anunnaki that had entered the Emerald Covenant. They accepted the Founders thing finally. They said, okay, we'll stop fighting. We won't try to destroy humans anymore. Help. If you'll help us, we will do this. So they were trusted, and they were offered an opportunity to progressively, over a period of time, hybridize with the human race, where they were not supposed to, it was not supposed to be they were just like let loose on the field so they could hybridize with everything that moved. It wasn't like that. They were allowed to have a presence on the planet, and then one by one they would pick up a strand template. One set of generations after like several thousand years would pick up one strand template. Then that species would be taken and evolved to pick up the next template, and that to pick up the next, until they got 5 strand templates that were the human ones that would reverse back to the normal order the distorted first 5 strands of theirs. This would allow them to ascend out of the density 1 field and get up to Tara, into density 2, where they could then do the process for the other strands, slowly building their ability to hold a 12-strand pattern, because their template was intersected with the human template, piece by piece. They were supposed to be another Christos race. They were being evolved to be a Christos race, to stand with us as portions of the guardians of this time matrix to help heal the Draconian races. There was a whole story that's going to come out in the Forbidden Book, the I think it's called the Forbidden Testaments of Revelation book. But some of what's going to come out is when we look at this list here, this talks about the hybridization experiment. It started right in through here, about 250,000 BC. There was an invasion here of Anunnaki races from the Palladian Nibiruan races, because there's several different strains of Anunnaki, and some of them don't like each other either. But the Palladian Nibiruan ones had come in here and invaded. And angelic humans were already on the planet doing their gatekeeper thing. You know, they were here for millions of years. They created a race called the Lucas race because they were fighting amongst themselves of who was going to work in the gold mines. They were harvesting gold to take back to Nibiru because they needed it. And they started to fight. Well, I don't want to work in the gold mines. It's icky down there. Well, I don't want to work there. Your group can do it. No, your group can do it. So they started fighting with each other. So there was a truce called by them deciding, okay, we'll create a slave race. So what they did was they took certain coding from their own DNA template. They genetically engineered it in their laboratories because they had spaceships flying around a lot, and they had literally flying laboratories. They were excellent geneticists. They could have fixed their own problem if they had cared to. At least the higher ones could have. But they decided that they would create a slave race here. And it's really funny because this is where they take history right now with the channels and twist the heck out of it. Because they want us to think we were that slave race they created and look how nice we've evolved and now they'll be nice to us and treat us as equals. That wasn't us. It wasn't us at all. They created a slave race. Okay, I think about 5 minutes. We created a slave race that had portions of certain genetic strains that were from Nibiru, which were related to the aquatic ape strains. They themselves were the aquatic ape hominid Anunnaki strain. Some of them are the bipedal dolphin people. These were not those. These were the aquatic ape hominid Anunnaki. They combined their template with certain qualities from animal templates from Nibiru, and then certain qualities from animal templates from here, from Earth. So the species would be strong enough to survive on Earth and be, coded to Earth. And they created the race just to really boss around and to use, to exploit. Now, they also, at the time, were progressively raiding human civilizations. And because they really liked the fact that humans had potentiality for compassion and bonding, which could be used if you put just a little of it in, a being has an ability to feel and bond. So if it likes you, or if it's scared, it'll listen better. As a control mechanism, they took portions of the captured humans. They would extract DNA template samples from them, and they would use part of that to engineer. They couldn't directly breed with human beings at that point. You could not produce live young through the process because they would just die. But with this new template, there's a little tiny bit of the human element put in that was extracted from the humans they had raided and killed but got their DNA samples.
Which day is the day now?
The day is the they are the Anunnaki ones. They're the Palladian Nibiruan Anunnaki. Yeah, and these are the familiar names that we find in our history of the Enki, Enlil, and Marduk. All their Sumerian legends and all that stuff. These were that group of Anunnaki. Okay, now they created a race called the Lulkus. The Lulkus were very primitive. They weren't highly intelligent, but they had the feeling nature of humans. So you could scare them because they'd feel the fear, so they'd listen better. And they were sent into the mines to work, and they were abused horribly, and they were treated terribly. These are the races that our scientists call the Neanderthal. Okay, that's what the Neanderthal man is. That was not human. That was not part of our genetic line, other than the fact there was a tiny bit of our template put into it. We didn't evolve out of these guys. Now, science knows that, too. There's not a lot of anything similar in the DNA they're finding between Neanderthals and humans. Now, humans do seem to have some similarity with some of the other races that go on the other end of the Cro-Magnon lines. Cro-Magnons were interesting. The Cro-Magnon races came out of something that was a really big mistake when you look back on it. But as far as I wouldn't do it again, I wouldn't be in this drama again if I knew the outcome was going to be. There was an opportunity offered to the races of Anunnaki that decided they wanted to enter the Emerald Covenant for bioevolution here so they could get their DNA templates back. Now there was already a race, an Anunnaki race, a primitive one, that was on the planet that could be used as the genetic base that would allow for the Anunnaki you could build it up by progressively adding one strand of the of the human coding to it as you grew it. Now these were humans, and humans did not incarnate into these forms. The human soul matrix did not. There was stages of a hybridization program where the Locust Neanderthal races that were not capable of interbreeding with humans at all physically, their templates were genetically engineered to have a little bit of elements of an old hybrid race line that was an Anunnaki human hybrid race line called the Hybornians. They were from a different system, but that was a link between them and between us, so they could start the bioregenesis here. Now, when the Locust Neanderthal were given the first upgrade, these were the ones that were put under the protection of the guardian races and of the humans. We were to help them evolve, and they were very sweet. They were actually like very loving animal people that had more intelligence than average animals, but they did not have the rational mind thinking abilities that we associate with being cognizant and highly intelligent here. Okay, now that happened in 250,000 BC. The Locust Neanderthal created in 246,000 BC, which was a bit later than that. Let's see, I get my BCs and 80s, yeah. Okay, coming forward. 246,000 BC, all sorts of wars were breaking out between the Anunnaki, and they were trying to raid the human civilizations, and the Maharaji of Sirius B came in and tried to do a truce. He said, okay, guys, how about we do the Emerald Covenant? Remember that? So they brought it back, humans entered it, some of the Anunnaki entered it. That's the point where with the hybridization experiment could be brought into actualization to help the races of Anunnaki that had entered the Emerald Covenant, to help them evolve into getting their 12 strands back. Now, there were several different stages to this. We had first in the meantime, we're seeding they're called the cloister human races. They were on the planets. They were the real tall ones that had, they were the indigos, basically. They had the indigo imprints. We were seeding our guys with the smaller templates, the 12-strand human beings, and then the root race human beings. So we're all here to hold frequency. We were all equal. We were just here to hold frequency. So we're doing our stuff at the same time as we're running this hybridization program to help the Anunnaki races. Now, let me see the next stage of it. It was 155,000 BC that the Anunnaki bioregenesis program began, where officially it was decided, 246,000 BC, that this would happen. By 155,000 BC, the permission was given to begin this and to do the genetic engineering to create a family line of what are they called, the Locust races, that would evolve to hold Anunnaki consciousness and progressively evolve upward back into what would be equal in its own way to a human form. Okay, 155,000 BC was level 1. They went from becoming, the names changed as they went up here. We went from the Locust race, that was the Neanderthal, into a race called the Luhari. The Luhari races were the first upgrade, and they were called the Cro-Magnon 1. Okay, with the Cro-Magnon races and the remnants of those races that are found. That was the first level of the hybridization program. 152,000 BC, the Luhari races were then upgraded to what was called the Iluli-Levi Cro-Magnon 2 races. Now, this was the first race that had enough human template that could actually have live interbreeding with humans, which released a Pandora's box of a nightmare on this planet. All of a sudden, this race could be used to infiltrate human race lines, because you could rape a human and have it have a hybrid child. This is what started to happen. As soon as the Iluli-Levi races were created, they were used by the consciousness that was incarnating. You had Emerald Covenant Anunnaki consciousness incarnating into them. Then you had the Anu Elohim going after them, doing field possession, taking over the bodies, and using those bodies to go infiltrate human race lines. This created progressively something called the Leviathan force, which was the force that was the Antichristos force here, the Illuminati family lines, the beginnings of them, where they were set here. Who's in those bodies that look like humans? Aren't humans. They're the Anu Elohim, and the Dracs were able to do it too. Because the Anunnaki that were used, the template that was used, that made the Lucas, those Anunnaki, the Pleiadian Nibiruans, the Jehovian Anunnaki don't like them because they're not pure strain. They have part Draconian codes and part Anunnaki codes in their template. So this new race, the Iluli-Levi, could be infiltrated by both fallen angelic matrices. The experiment wasn't stopped there. because there was still these consciousness that the Anunnaki and Draconians that wanted to evolve and that were still, respecting the Emerald Covenant. These guys were they didn't do anything wrong. They were being victimized too by the fallen angelic matrices. So the experiment continued with a lot of protection, as much protection as we could give, and there were several other stages that brought us up to all of a sudden we all look the same and we're not supposed to. The Eluli Levi, the next stage up was the Eluli Judah, which became the first kind of Cro-Magnon borderline Homo sapien. We're not even Homo sapiens. We read like one genetically now, but when you unblock the gene code and the rest of it manifests, we don't even read Homo sapien. What's happening right now is because of the blockages on strands 1, 2, 3, and 4, we are similar to the Anunnaki races because they inherited the imprints for our strands through this evolution program. But humans and indigos. Okay, humans came out of indigos, really. The indigos were the ones that had the real high templates, and out of that were made the 12-strand human templates. Okay, basically, we went through these stages of the hybridization program, and this is the stories that are being explained in pretty much detail in the new book that's coming out, that led up to the point where the massacre happened. You had a Leviathan force progressively being raised by different competing versions of the fallen angelic Anunnaki races. You had Jehovian ones, you had the Pleiadian Nibiruran ones, the Thoth matrix was one of those, the Enoch matrix was involved with the Jehovian ones for a while. Thoth and Enoch, these names go right back to the beginning of this experiment because they were the first ones to receive the ability to go through this hybridization and see how high they could get, and they were successful. They were able to actually, they became temporarily Christed, well almost. They got up to about 11 and a half strands of getting them back in the right order. They were appointed as the overseers of the hybrid experiment to help get the other ones back into the Christos. And at two different points, after thousands of years of really supporting the Emerald Covenant, after thousands of years, one thing really got to Thoth. Thoth had one problem. He never quite overcame the Anunnaki imprint of arrogance and race supremacy. He still felt that the Anunnaki races should be the ones in control of things. And at a certain point he got pushed, where there was an Anunnaki reclamation movement, that they were going, there's whole sorts of groups of them, of the fallen angelics, and he decided he would join them. Shortly after, in reaction to it, to try to protect his own people, Enoch joined too. And this was all in Atlantis. This is where the Atlantean conspiracy began. So what we're living right now is the end of this train of the hologram. This is the imprinting that we have, that we keep manifesting as our past that we don't see. It's the stuff, the undercurrent that's going on in the drama right now. So there's a whole drama. If we come back to the victim versus victimization thing, we first of all need to realize there must be something in us that is creating, that is transmitting out the fact that we keep playing the victim. Why do we care? We've been doing it for billions of years. What's happening here? What is in the human template that is creating this problem? That goes back to when the humans were created. Part of the Giovanni matrix, the fallen Anu Elohim Giovanni matrix, which was originally part of the Elohai Elohim family, part of them had gone back into what was called host matrix. They decided that they were going to be nice and wanted to become Christed again. So we humans were created with a bit of an element of that template in it to allow their races to evolve too. We have a piece of their coding and we have a piece of the fallen Seraphai coding. It's very small, but it's just enough to allow them to be able to allow us and them to be able to share the same hologram, so we can come into their hologram and bring healing. But it's also the same thing that's bringing them into our hologram to create chaos. So we got to ask ourselves, okay, if in this level that you are my hologram that I'm manifesting, why am I doing this? That is the why. Because the part of your template that's manifesting this conflict drama, why it's coming back to Earth on a race level, is because, not because you are that Anunnaki right now. You're a different consciousness. You're connected at source. But you came in on a different stream of consciousness, and so did they. But you were given a portion of their template so you could enter their hologram as healers. And because of that, we've been entering each other's hologram all along. Now, we have, for too long, taken the stance of allowing ourselves to be victimized because humans were very stunned. There was a stun factor when they started to realize something could not have compassion. How could you, I am you, you are me, how could you hate me? How could you want to destroy me and dismember me and take my planet out from under me? There is literally a stun factor of not knowing what to do with oneself in face of conflict like that. When something of a negative polarity hits you so badly that you just get destabilized and you get knocked into polarity yourself. That's what's been happening. The way to heal it is to go into peace, non-judgment. You need to love them too and realize that you do have a nugget of what they are inside of you, but that doesn't mean that you're dominant force. What it means is it gives you the ability to reach out to them with love. And if they're creating a mess in your face and they're serving a hologram purpose, your hologram's telling you, if an Anunnaki comes up and slaps you in the face, what is this telling you? I just manifested myself as the image of an Anunnaki that's in my template. Okay, that must be that thing coming up in my template that was a part of their matrix. What is it telling me? It's telling me there's something I can do right now to create healing that will assist that part of my template and assist this individual of that origin. So you will assist the person as a symbol part of you, but you will also assist the individual. Humans have a healer contract. They came in as healers and guardians. So they will be compelled into situations that need healing and guarding. It's part of our matrix, part of what our template was. So when we get into realizing we don't have to play victim, and really it's not about victimization. You can look at it different. Now I have the opportunity to enter a disharmonic field where I can be a force of healing by going into my center point. I am peace. I am love. By learning how to be love and be peace, you will do what the humans were created to do here, which was come in and bring that vibration to help the others and the whole field to heal. Okay, now I've run over a bit from where I was supposed to be, about 15 minutes, but that's okay. We'll still get to where we need to be. That was good that we went in that direction. I don't go on tangents unless they have something to do with something that's in everybody's template like this. The things he was asking about Anunnaki brought us to the point where I would introduce this beforehand, and I think that's important because I can feel they're moving things in a certain direction with this. But when we come back from our dinner break, we'll explore the fact that, okay, we're not victims in this situation. Now what is the situation? Because if we can approach what's happening and what needs to be done from peace and love and from absolutely not judging the worthiness of being of Anunnaki or Draconian races, you can look at their actions and say, that was an Antichristos action. But that doesn't mean the being is not lovable or valuable or blessed. You still need to treat it as a face of God, but you don't let it run over you in the process. So we'll talk more about that when we get back, and we'll get into the round tables and explain what they mean. Okay? There's not time to do all of the history here, by the way. This would be a whole workshop on just the history. There's 2 charts like this, and each one of them is a period in time with a whole drama. You know, it's really strange. I've had experiences where I could see the other half through the mirror. There's a certain level of perception you can flip into, and I've never done it on purpose. It's like it was time for my higher self to show me something, and I would look in the mirror and I would see this reflection in the room behind me, and then all of a sudden it would change. And I would be looking in on its reverse and realizing, oh, that's my double over there. Oh, neat. You know, so that's interesting to have the mirrored doors for our workshop. It gives us a visual representation of what it would mean to have our other selves over there, you know, in their workshop. Okay. Now, all righty. Okay, now. Yeah, 2 of them over there, yeah. All right. Now, what we were talking about right before we left was basically the history, this hidden history, hidden and forbidden by the Anunnaki history, that culminated in the events that we're experiencing right now. Now, time is simultaneous, so this simply means that in every one of these points on this list of things, which is an event in time that took place that led up to this drama, these are actually things that are happening right now in different space-time coordinates that are coming together with our now to form a holographic projection of their kind of finalization where the whole pattern gets birthed into matter. We can change a lot of things and put them into a better probability. Because we're dealing with probabilities. If one goes this way, the other will go this way. If one goes up, one will go down. Right now, we're facing a mass situation that after a whole bunch of frequency, which are time-space dramas, holograms that we've moved through, there's going to be the grand hurrah. at the end of this particular block or time cycle. We're in the middle of the Grand Hurrah, the stellar activation cycle. And if we continue with the programming that we've been accepting, we will not have the ending of that we would like. We will have another beginning. We will go back to the beginning of the whole cycle and go through the whole hologram again. We've done it already several times. So at this point, there's a whole history line. This one goes from 798,000 BC basically to about 33,000 BC. There's another one. This is where, at least I can show you where the Leviathan force, the Illuminati force, came into this planet and begin to infiltrate from within to get control of the stargates. They also begin a process of systematically raiding each of the 12 tribes races. The 12 tribes races were the 12 tribes of human races that were put here, one tribe for each stargate. Each tribe and the people that were in the tribe held in their DNA templates extra coding that had to do with their security clearance to run the planetary Templar grids. Now, the Anunnaki races got into incarnation on this planet through the hybridization program. Some of them were fine and stayed loyal to the Emerald Covenant, and they have been persecuted just as much as anybody else by the fallen angelic races. In fact, they're more persecuted because they're looked at as defectors, and they're fallen angelic collectives that they had originally incarnated out of and then decided they didn't want to be a part of anymore, tried to teach them a lesson. So they have had hard lessons too. But then there are the Illuminati races of both Anunnaki and Draconian form, who now are walking around in hybrid human forms that look like our forms, and they're still being subconsciously and subliminally controlled by the fallen angelic collectives that they originally incarnated out of. They look like humans and they think they're humans. They don't know there's a difference, because on this level they're kept ignorant to anything else they're connected to, because as long as they're ignorant, they're not going to make any other choice. They'll just follow the impulses. These are the people who are being given channel clearance, which means they have certain implants that plug them right into the matrices so they can translate their information down. That means that they can be walking spokespersons for the fallen angelic collectives, teaching twisted mechanics, doing this, doing that, to literally mobilize humans, because heck, they're human too, to mobilize humans to run the planetary grids in reverse, because that's what the objective of this whole game has been. They need to get a critical mass of reverse spin. They already have the density 1 planetary Merkaba field spinning 90% or 80% in reverse order. They have 20% to go that they had to wait until the Stargate opening cycle to complete. For them to get control of the Halls of Amenti, they had to get control of the Merkaba field on parallel Earth and the Merkaba field here. Wait till the stellar activation cycle. Get those both in reverse beforehand. And in a stellar activation cycle, when the natural blending of the timelines between parallel Earth and here would occur through inner Earth, the reversal would throw the crystal pylon temples of inner Earth into reverse spin. It would reverse inner Earth stargates. If they get control of inner Earth stargates, they get control of the crystal pylon temple network and the halls of Amenti on a reverse spin, which means they have gained control of this time matrix. So it's a big game that's been going on for a very long time. There's intentions here that are very sad, and this is an ancient, as far away from us in vibration, where this started. This started back literally 250 billion years ago in our timeline terms. But again, we've cycled through 2 destructions of the human lineage on this planet because of the same conflict. Just in the time we were seated on Earth, there was the near destruction of Tara in density 2, 550 million years ago. That's how we all ended up down here after that, trying to repair the damage down here to get things back to where we could repair the damage on Tara and work our ways back up. We're in the middle of a situation where we have huge power at our disposal, but we don't know that we have it. We have the ability just in doing what we were created to do, which is to be at peace and be peace, to be in love and be love. This is what humans were created to do, to be the ones that harmonized. We were the healers and the harmonizers sent in to restore the natural integrity to the energy systems and the beings in this time matrix to help them all. If we can remember what it means to do that, we will be able to heal this. And there's not going to be the wars. There's not going to be all the things that the Anunnaki and Draconian races were both intending and projecting outward, centered on this time period. The whole progression of events, and every one of these is a big story. We don't have time to tell it tonight. Some of these stories are at least capsulized in the Templar manuals for anybody that got them. They're capsulized in there so you get an idea of what these time periods mean in relation to now. There's more of an in-depth explanation of the time periods in the book that's coming out, hopefully by the end of November, the Forbidden Book, as I call it, the Forbidden Testaments of Revelation. But the important thing to realize about this timeline, this is the set of vibrational pictures or vibrational patterns that became living pictures for our race as we move to get to this point of living vibrational picture. All right? These are the events that took place in the timeline that Earth is connected to right now. We had the infiltration of what began as the Eluli-Levi races that were intended to become, again, Christed races. So the Anunnaki and Draconian races had a way out of their fallen angelic matrices. Because literally, if you incarnated out of a fallen angelic matrix, you did not have the D12 coding. It's called the Christos spark. You did not have the Christos spark at fetal integration. So you could only go up so high, you couldn't access D12 yourself. You needed a host matrix, which means somebody, one of the consciousness collectives from D12 or higher, had to make a bridge down to you and give you new coding to plug you into something that would give you at least a temporary suspension of the D12 field so you could get out of the densities. And it has been a veil of sorrow, particularly for the Anunnaki races and the Draconian races that wanted to get out of the Antichristos agenda. Once they were in it, it was very difficult to get out. This progression of events literally has changed the face of what human history is. It's like somebody put in a holographic insert of a false history. So our race would think that we were a certain thing, so we would behave in a certain way. And it is a false history, so we've literally been manufacturing somebody else's hologram progressively. We have managed to build the Anunnaki Palladian Orion model of civilization that is built upon competition, and it is built upon warfare, and it is built upon hatred, and it is built upon fear. It's built on survival of the fittest. That's not the natural way the universe works. Once upon a time, we had what was called the Lyran-Sirian model that was the dominant force on this planet. That changed in 25,500 BC. That's when this place was infiltrated and invaded, and progressively the Palladian Orion model has been forced into our hologram. What will be our victory as a species is getting ourselves back to the point, or up to the point, of vibration, where we get to walk the hologram again of what it meant to be part of the Lyran-Sirian model of civilization, which was built on love and cooperation, sharing of knowledge, healing of things that needed to be healed. It was the Christos agenda. It was the Christos way of beings interacting with each other. And it was the way that the Emerald Covenant, the Founders' Emerald Covenant that was made so long ago, 950 billion years ago, in our time, in relation to time here, is when the Emerald Covenant was started for this time matrix. It was an agreement of coevolution, loving coevolution, that was meant to keep this time matrix in balance so we could experience polarity in a gentle way, enjoy the benefits of it, learn things about ourselves. But it was not in this time matrix meant to go to such extremes that several times this time matrix has almost imploded because polarity and consciousness has got so out of balance. We're at a cusp of a new beginning or a new ending, and they're all the same. Beginnings and endings are all the same point. We can either repeat the problems, the patterns, and they are problems if you have a desire or a preference to return to source in wholeness and awareness of what you're doing, or to return to source as space dust. Either way you're going to return, but when you return to source as space dust, you actually return to source but stay in the time matrix. You don't do the full expansion out. You end up as particles here. You're still in source. You're not separate from source. And other things you will be the creative ground that other things are put in, other things that are evolving and accreting their memory and becoming the wholeness of source, not just residing within source as fragments. It's definitely a preference. All right? It's not all neutral. If it was all neutral, we'd have a static universe, and we wouldn't have had a projection in the first place. There is an advantage, and source has a preference. This is what a lot of people don't realize, especially if they follow twists that have been put here by Anunnaki races. Supposedly, source doesn't carry the weight, just accepts it all and loves it all, and it's all fine, so source does nothing. That is not the way it works. Source does love all. What Source does, because Source loves all, is when it sees imbalance coming to a point where Source has an intention for a time matrix or a system or a being or a person, and that intention is getting so twisted and so far bent away from its original that it will never be fulfilled, and the being or the consciousness that was born to fulfill that intention is going to be turned back to fragments rather than to its fulfillment. Source knows, because Source feels us, what it will feel like to that being to be ripped apart from the inside out. It knows the longing that particles feel when they think they're all alone or when they experience themselves as random. Source has within itself the force of chaos and the force of order. The force of chaos was created for one reason. You cannot have the force of manifestation without polarity. The force of chaos was created as you needed to create polarity. You needed the negative and positive charge electrical particles